Guys, it's episode 79, Phumblepodcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. We're talking about a riveting topic today with one of my fellow comic friends, dear friends, Stephanie Ross out here in Sacramento. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me, Pej.
Yeah, of course. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, guys, on Phumblepodcast. Give me a super thanks.
Slam that.
Yes, I appreciate you guys. It'll help me a lot. Obviously, you know where to find me on social media, Pej the Maniac on all socials. Stephanie, do you want to plug away any of your socials or you're good?
Well, you can find me on all the platforms, Stephanie Marie Ross, except on Instagram. My handle is XHSQ, and I got that because my name's really basic and every possible combination was taken. So I just found the shortest one that existed still, and so it means nothing for the record.
Your name is not basic, but you have a middle name. I don't even have that, so there you go.
Oh, well, that's the Persian, right?
Yeah. Persians barely get a first name.
Yeah.
No,
That's funny.
So, all right. The topic of today's conversation is riveting, and Stephanie has inside scoops on it. She has her own experience, and we were going to delve into it. And it's the idea of cults. Now, I want to know, first of all, you mentioned to me off air that your parents met in a cult.
That's true. They did.
That's okay. Let's start there. So,
right.
Break
it's
that
not something
down.
I've talked a lot about, but I've become more of an open book as I'm older, and I've been learning how much as an adult my mental health has really come through, like, I mean, I have a very different origin story than a lot of people. And
yeah.
you know, I guess like it stemmed from their parents, right? Like my mom's dad married 3 times, and so did her mom, and one of her stepmoms took her to a cult, and I don't even think it was the same one. I mean, cult, new age religion, potato.
Yeah.
You know, it's how detrimental they are, right? And so I think, like, you know, I think it was as weird as it sounds. Like the cult leader was like, "Hey, marry someone else. There's 2 guys here. Pick one of them."
Wow.
So my dad was the winner. And I have an older sister. I'm the younger one. My sister's 6 years older by school. So we're sort of like only children in that regard. I guess they say past 4 years. Then anyway, so you know.
Wait, I want to understand that better. So past 4 years, what?
So when you have a gap in age from a sibling that's bigger than 4 years, you're not really in the same school ever. Like high school is 4 years, middle school is 3 now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so my family has always pointed that out because we're both pretty different in personality and independent. And because she's older, I think she got a lot more of the cult infusion maybe than I did. Because I'm so much younger, I was able to sort of, you know, benefit from the parents chilling out and relaxing. But, you know, I think because of the nature of how my parents met, they clearly had some stuff in common because they went to this very weird place that they each found on their own, right? Like a small cult in Sacramento. By the way, there's so many cults in Sacramento. So many.
Wow.
Everyone be careful. And there's like a lot of it is like just little congregations that are churches that can go sideways because especially during lockdown too, I think that people can have their worst behavior come out when you're when you're around people, this is something I think about a lot because, my family, we all have different mental health problems. I think there's anxiety, there's bipolar. I'm doing great now. I'm on a variety of medications. I think, there's a holistic effect of things that work for me. And, but I think that I wouldn't exist without a cult, but I do think that, there's good people get drawn into them because there's something they're looking for. Right. And it's just so hard, when you hand your personal, some of your emotional self over to other people, they're looking for spiritual growth, and it's so easy to be taken advantage of, these people have charisma, and, my family was just, a lot of it was destroyed by a different cult. And, there's all different kinds of ones in and out between. I couldn't even probably tell you all the ones in Sacramento alone.
Wow. So your family has been through different cults?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. So, man, I gotta know. So, okay. So your parents, your mom picked your dad.
Yeah.
And then here comes your sister and you, right? So, so then how was that? Like, at what age, like what was life like growing up in that environment for you? Like as a kid, like when like at what age did you feel like, what kind of school did you go to? Was everything controlled? Like how was all that?
Yeah, I was lucky because I think I would classify mostly what my parents did as like going to events. My dad recently escaped a cult where there like is a compound, and people are supposed to pretty much like live and work and breathe the cult. And he became like troublesome enough that they kicked him like off site, I guess.
Wow.
And then he hit 70, and before that was just decided he didn't give a fuck anymore. And so he's out now, but he's still like really, I mean, he was in it for a long time. And so like that's one experience. Like my mom still goes to meetings for things that other people would classify as cults. But at this point, I think I keep a watchful eye.
Yeah.
But I've been through so much now that I can kind of see where the mental health element is. And like, at least with what my mom's doing, if it gets too weird, she pulls away because of, I think, we all have trauma from them. And so, it's weird, like I wouldn't like wish it upon anyone, I mean, I'm very like atheist, agnostic because of it, because I've just, and my family is like Catholic or cult. There's like, not a lot of in between.
Oh, okay.
So it's weird, Catholics like obviously really strict, and like, my dad's side of the family is really big Catholic guilt. My aunt in New York still goes to church every Sunday. So,
Man.
It's just weird the way that families can kind of split off like that. But for me growing up, since I was the younger sibling, I think I didn't understand a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
And, my older sister might have shielded me from some of it too. I do remember going to things and thinking it was weird though. Like, chanting stuff is like a little bit strange. It's actually like what they do in 12-step meetings. There's like some stuff that you say together. So like there's power in the like spoken word, that's like what churches do.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I think it's so tricky, I don't even think that people set out to take advantage of other people in these situations. I think sometimes like these little congregations, there's someone who is a figurehead and people look to them for advice. And then because of that, it's I don't want to say that everyone needs to like be on guard, but you do have to trust your gut, see what feels good or what doesn't feel good. You and I, Pej, you and I started comedy around the same time.
Right.
So I'm sure, you have stuff going on in your life that, we find this, I need to laugh to like, break the tension sometimes. Like,
sure,
this is crazy hard shit,
absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, listen, I get it. I understand. First of all, you mentioned something, and then I want to get back to this point. You talked about your sister sheltering you from a lot of it. So that begs the question. It's almost like did she kind of know also that this was like not okay, and then she was trying to protect you, even though she's kind of in it? Like that's got to be a weird dynamic.
Yeah, and like I know that she was affected more and taken to more events than I was. There's like, I do remember, like, so my parents would host these parties. Like there's I would call this other group like it's like a new agey religion. By all definitions, you could classify it as a cult, but they're not. I wouldn't call them destructive. Okay. And this is my own rhetoric. Like there's Rick Ross has books, and they did a lot of questionable deprogramming stuff. So take what works and leave the rest, is what they say in some groups. But I remember going to these parties, and like people would just be like, "Oh, you're so cute," because I'd be like, they're here and I'm here, and so I just remember being like, "Oh, people are telling me I'm cute. This is great," and so my exposure was really like very different, and I think there's a book about birth order. But do you have siblings, Pej?
I was actually saying I have an older sister now that I know. She was also on a different schooling because she was 7 years older than me. So so similar to you. Yeah. So
I mean, your families may be a little different with what your parents exposed you guys to, but I do think that I sort of got more of the just the nature of my family and birth order and being so much younger. I think I got to choose more for myself and kind of take it all in and be like, what feels good, what doesn't. I remember I developed a love for bagels and cream cheese, and I hung out in the kitchen a lot, I thought it was weird, and weird doesn't mean bad necessarily, but I just didn't, I didn't want to participate. So I think that because of that, I absorbed less of it. And, none of it's my sister's fault. Like, she's taken to cult parties, her husband's really atheist. His family was raised Catholic. And, it's funny because usually the parents, like, you have to like lie to pretend you're Catholic for the parents, but his mom like knows he's atheist and still forced them to have the Catholic wedding. So and it was great because like the priest just like they shipped him over from Hawaii. He was really chill. I've never met a Catholic priest so chill. So if you ever get to make a bargain with your family, find the guy from Hawaii. He's great.
I think everybody's chill in Hawaii, so that works.
Right.
No, I get that. I mean, so you were more of a free thinker just as a result of being the younger one.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. I can totally relate to that because I was, I got away with a lot more than my sister got away with,
Right.
And she still reminds me of that till this day. But it's funny. Like we're close. We're really close now. Like my sister and I. But growing up, we were just in two completely different worlds. Like she was. Now we grew up in a religion, and actually the whole point of us coming to America was because of that religion, because Baha'i religion is the name. But I went through my period of like really exploring that religion and really being involved as a youth. I was really, a lot of my youth was spent in service. Like I was either a camp counselor or I was part of like Sunday school stuff, or I was, part of like their monthly meetings. So, um,
So you're pretty involved.
I was until the age of 25 ish is when I really, kind of took I don't want to call them blindfolds because it was something I put on myself. It wasn't something that was put on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have anything against the Baha'i religion. I love the people from that community. They weren't pressuring me, right?
Right.
Some people do. Some people do, but that's human nature, I think. When someone finds something that works for them, they want to, you know,
Yeah.
the fallacy in thinking is to be like, "Oh, I got to get all these people to also do that." Right?
Right.
But the truth is the mind is so much more sophisticated than that, and life is so much more sophisticated than that. Um on an individual basis that, two siblings literally can have two completely different outtakes on the same views, right? On the same
Yeah.
top. So anyway, saying all that in saying that my parents are still very involved in that religion, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as involved. Uh I'm a spiritual person. I've always I think that's something I learned at the age of 25, 26 is that I'm a very
Yeah.
spiritual person, but I'm not a religious person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so uh and that was really freeing at that time in my life because that really opened up my eyes, and I really was able to actually, I can tell you this, I was only looking at the holy books from that religion for all the answers
Oh.
up until that age.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I opened my eyes up to be like, wait, let me look at this book, let me look at science books, let me look at other religion, let me look at just anything, right? Any book with knowledge on anything I was dealing with or I had questions about.
Right.
And that was just so liberating because I realized at that moment that they're all basically preaching the same thing, like
Yeah.
the religions are, and to some degree, some cults maybe they're preaching the same thing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit here and we're not, I don't want to get into our religions basically viewed as another version of a cult. It
Yeah.
depends. It depends because religions can be right now. People that are into cults don't call it a
Mm-hmm.
cult, right?
Right.
They don't think of it that way. And people in religions definitely don't call it a cult. So it's like, um, cult has a negative connotation to it, rightfully so, because
Mm-hmm.
it has a very bad history. It has a very dark history. Um, anyway, my point being though is, I always look at it this way: to each their own. Whatever you
Yeah.
believe in, whatever you are into, I respect that. As long as you're not infringing on other people, as long as you're not trying to force that down my throat,
Right.
right? Like if I'm not vibing with that, that should be okay as well. Like you
Yeah,
don't,
exactly. That's a very good point.
right? You don't need to be like, yo, this is the way. This is exactly how. It really
Mm-hmm.
isn't. There's an endless amount of possibilities on outlooks on life, and as long as we are being humans first,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the biggest revelations I had was we're all human, man. Like anything, like
Right.
anybody, any cult, religion, doesn't matter. Whatever you're in, you were born human first. Like it doesn't matter what you ended up practicing. We were all the same. We were all humans at first. So when you just simplify it to that, in my opinion, I feel like it's a lot easier to get along with people, man.
Right.
Because it's like we can all fuck with each other. Like it's fine. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's
Well,
not. Yes.
the way that I've kind of recently decided for now is like I finally realized how much I have to sort of prioritize my mental health to a certain amount because for my whole life I was overextending and I had enough of a support like system that I didn't realize was there that once that kind of the floor fell out I had no tools. And since then I've sort of backtracked and said like I just want to try and be a good person. I want to be good to other people and try to make other people laugh and connect and remember that like you just said we're all human if we're trying to if something works for us, that's great. Like if you found something works for you, fuck yeah, you know.
100%.
Pardon my French.
No,
but like it, you know, I'm learning that I think that God will forgive me, or you know, J Money, rollerblade in Christ is gonna forgive me for not putting a ton of time into focusing on faith with his dad if I'm just trying to do a good job here, you know. Like if there is an afterlife, they'll be like, well, you didn't like believe in it really hard, but you did a good job, so you know, that's what I think counts. Like try to be not so shitty all the time, me.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's something anybody can agree on, because if we're all just like, I mean, and this is a whole other topic, but I just feel like there's good in everybody. I believe in that. I have to believe in that. I don't. There are people who'll argue that. They're like, no, there's an evil gene. People can be born with evil gene.
No.
I don't know. I mean, again, I work with kids. I teach kids, right?
That's so cool. Like, thank you. Like, oh my God, like arts, we need it so much. My aunt was a art ceramics teacher for 30 years at a high school in Sacramento. So,
wow, really? That's
cool. Like we need it. Like those classes, like every time I would hear they'd cut money to the arts, like,
oh yeah,
oh God.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So I'm going to tell you something crazy. It's related to what you just said. I really wish that like I knew more good things that like Trump did when he was president. I'm sure that he did good things. I mean, I know he like sort of brokered Middle East peace treaties and you know, he legitimized the Taliban a little, which is problematic. But like, anyway, I barely know anything good that he did. And that's the media's fault and also my fault for not trying to figure out. But my point is like, he's like, in my world, he's kind of like Voldemort, but like, he's not. Like, people are people. Like, people, unfortunately, people aren't monsters. That's why criminal profiling works. It's because people are actually people. And when you just point out what's wrong with someone to them the whole time, guess what? That doesn't do a lot for self-esteem. And so even like the bad guys, like I would benefit from knowing good about everyone. And so I think we got to try and focus on it too. It's like not to get all hippie, but it's like manifesting really kind of matters.
Listen, hippie, I feel like hippie has become a negative connotation to it. It's gotten a negative connotation simply because, like, obviously we're comics, so it's fun to make fun of it and tease and all that, right? But there's something there, man. Again, if you don't call it hippie, just call it. I mean, now the Gen Zs are calling it the woke society, right? Like
the woke society,
right?
Yeah,
people are woke. Like they do research. They're in the know. But you're right. Trump. I mean, first of all, Trump is one person, right?
Right.
I mean, if we really want to get into the depths of it, he wasn't holding the power. Like at the end of the day, there is an entire, let's call it a cult. There's an entire
the cult of Trump. I do call it that.
For sure. There's a whole. I'm saying there's an entire system in place to call the shots down to the president to just sign. Essentially. So the bottom line is he was just one person. I don't think there's a whole documentary called The Family on Netflix. I don't know if you ever seen it, but it talks about how until he passed away, there was this one person who had so much power. He wasn't the president. He was always in hiding, but he was always advising to multiple presidents throughout his life onto what is best for a small segment of society. And what is that segment? It's usually the top 1%. Right.
Of course.
So it's always about the money and the power and the greed, right? But it fucks up, majority of the world because it's affecting those lives. It's not affecting the 1%ers. It's affecting the lesser. Now, again, I'm not hating on 1%ers. I'm just saying like there's got to be a better system that helps more people. And there are other countries that are practicing, like Finland or Norway. Like they have such you don't hear as many. Why are they never on the news, right?
Yeah, because they're working on their mental health better.
Yeah, mental health is is a leading cause of a lot of their laws and their systems, and that's something the U.S. is unfortunately not really focused on. So.
Yeah, the Reagans ruined everything.
Oh shit! Okay.
Hashtag that it goes along with how raisins ruin everything. I don't like raisins, but sorry, did I just make you choke?
No, it's cool. Stephanie has she's like a total Persian mom. She always has at any comedy open mic we go to. She's always bringing like either almonds or she has like.
I do.
Yeah, that's such a Persian mom thing, but it's cool. So yeah, Reagan ruined everything. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the Reagans criminalized drug problems and turned it from a mental health problem to a criminal issue. But unfortunately, the police are not equipped to handle that because it isn't really a criminal problem. And so and then they got the Latin Americas in on it. So like half the world was like really set backwards a lot in terms of I mean, like homelessness, our homeless crisis goes back to policies the Reagans put in place.
Wow. Now, do you think it was do you think it was the Reagans, or was it again that system that dictated what should happen? Because it's a money. It is. It's a money grab.
It's always the outside in. It is. It's control. It's money. There's a little bit of good news though, like $80 billion was just put in to breathe some life back into the IRS so that the billionaires who were just like not paying taxes will start to be held accountable at least. So there's like, little baby steps. But I still think like we all kind of have to hold each other accountable, like I used to like give away a lot of myself to get approval from other people and instead of really like getting it for myself first. So, there's an element of like taking care of yourself first that is, you have to do that so that you can be a functional person in the world. And for a while I crashed and burned. And I think that, I think if I had belief, it would have been easier, and so I'm not saying that like I'm right. I think people who have faith they probably are happier to some extent, but
isn't that what it's all? I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about, right? It's happiness and finding that consistency and happiness and mental health is I mean a pivotal part of that.
That's why we have comedy, right?
Comedy
is my religion.
Hey, there you go. I love it. Stephanie is hilarious, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
She has some funny stories. She said hopefully she'll be coming to a town near you soon.
Another comedian has described me as relatable.
Relatable. That's a great word. I would agree.
Thank you so much for hosting me. This was great. God.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just wrap it up on this, and that is where do you think social media, like what role do you think social media has, a positive role is I guess what I'm asking is what positive roles do you see social media having in the fields of mental health and also cults and just freeing the people like mentally to think for themselves and be able to go forth with love as opposed to criticism and negativity?
Absolutely. That's one of the best things that I think we try to do as comedians is, uplift each other. And I think that like Gen Z, I'm a millennial. We're both millennials. Gen Z's under us, and I feel like every generation is more connected and distant all at the same time. And I feel like the generation under us is way more tuned in with their mental health. And like we kind of had to crash and burn, at least I did, to get to a better place. And I'd rather die than go through what I've been through, but I am on the other side of it now. And I think that, it's good to make sure that we're trying to do good and, give ourselves grace, give each other a little bit of grace. And, one of the things that I love about the internet is it can always be a quick sanity check for me. Like if I'm thinking about something and I'm like, how is it that this is the way it is? I can't be the only person bothered by whatever, this is. And then you go on Reddit and you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah. But that's beautiful in itself, because you realize there are people out there that are also looking for better.
And we're picking apart the problems one at a time, right?
Yes.
Like there's people that are like, there's countertop composters now that you don't have to opt into any of the curbside stuff. We're figuring out our own solutions. So
yes. And I think that's exactly right. And I'm hopeful, and I'm glad that you've gone through your tests and you've come out of it a winner. And I'm lucky to have known you now as a comedian.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And
right back at you.
Thank you. Yeah. And we're going to keep going with that. But yeah, that's how I look at social media. I think it's going to solve over time, because things take time, right? To be done right, it takes time. I think social media is going to be putting a lot of the power and information back in the hands of the people.
You remember with the internet was originally created to share medical knowledge to help people.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so it started on a good thing, right? It started as a positive. And I think that's where it's going to eventually end. Like all the wolves are going to come and try to fuck it up. But I think there are enough people in tech that are on the pure side. I always talk about purifying the mind. And I think it's going to eventually break down a lot of this bullshit, right? So, well, Stephanie, thank you. You want to plug away real quick your handles again?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, XHSQ. I'm going to be doing more on that. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. And my handles are Stephanie Marie Ross.
Stephanie Marie Ross. And Stephanie was the in our skit with Brace. She played the girlfriend.
Yeah.
So check that out on my channel. I'm Pej the Maniac on all socials. This is Fumble Podcast, episode 79. We talked about cults, and we talked about mental health, because they're related, and it's a very riveting topic, and we could have talked about it for hours, but I appreciate you coming on. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks everyone.